was incredibly positive about Kachina's potential position in the meta leading up to her release, and now that we've actually had her for a few days, I thought I'd deliver my more fleshed out thoughts on the character, evaluate whether my pre-release pros and cons were accurate or not, and give my opinion on where I think she currently stands in the meta. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. I continuously proclaimed that Kachina was going to become Navia's new best-in-slot teammate thanks to F2P Cinder City. And yes, I absolutely stand by that. Kachina makes C0, R1, Chiori, and Navia teams look like a joke, as she provides way better benefits to the team over gimped sub-DPS. What are these qualities, I hear you ask? Well, first off, F2P Cinder City is a whopping 40% damage bonus buff. That's crazy, as it's literally a buff equivalent to a 1000 EM Kazuha. Since Kachina is Geo herself and the set needs a reaction to work, she is always going to be buffing Navia. Plus, Navia teams almost always have a sub-DPS in them, whether that be Farina, Yalan, Shangling, etc. Because Kachina needs to react in order to cook with Cinder City, she's naturally going to crystallize with one of those other teammates. So it's not only Navia who receives a 40% damage bonus buff, but the sub-DPS as well, meaning that Kachina makes up for the lost sub-DPS from Chiori by quite a large margin. Also, that's especially big for Farina-less Navia teams, where you aren't already getting a ton of damage bonus percent. Kachina's C1 also sucks in crystallized shards, which is generally very intuitive for the comp, and her C2 helps with her construct uptime as she respawns it upon using her burst after activating this con. It's really nice for keeping up good Cinder City procs. Plus, she's cheap as heck compared to Navia's other partner Geos. Kachina can activate her role with proccing Cinder City just fine on +0 artifacts with an ER Sands. This indeed held true. And the only reason I put any investment into her levels was to claim my one free standard wish from doing so, and to make sure that my Kachina wouldn't literally get one tap from basic enemies. It's worth giving her a leveled flower for the HP in my opinion. The free-to-play Navia team also holds up really well. It's such a strong free-to-play team, and I honestly find it kind of crazy that it's only built up of accessible 4-star units, because man, I find the gameplay feel of it to be incredible. So as of now, yes, she is most definitely Navia's best in slot. This not only held true for my pre-release thoughts on her kit, but held true to an excellent extent. I also mentioned how Kachina would be a great general buffer for characters other than just Navia. I do agree with this simply because of Nervalette. The team of Nervalette, Farina, Kazuha, Cinder City, Kachina may as well be a team designed to eliminate the Celestians above, because oh my Archons, this team blows everything out of the primordial seawater. It's such an absurdly good team for Nervalette that I honestly did not see coming, and it makes me fear for the day when Kachina eventually gets power-crept. Fellas, I think an absolute nuke is soon to be upon us. If you build Kachina on EM with her freed up Goblet and Circlet slots, you can also strengthen her Crystallized shields to provide more protection to a C0 Nervalette. It'll help prevent staggering quite nicely. You can also get an extra stack of past Draconic Glories with his kit on his side. And my gosh, I don't think Nervalette's ever falling off at this point, is he? Also, shout out to my comment section for telling me about the EM build. The DPS Chiori use case works about as well as you'd expect. It can indeed function quite nicely. I'm showing double Geo plus double Hydro here, but you can also consider a true Hyper Chiori team of Chiori herself, Kachina, C0 to 5 Bennett, and Goro. The reason why I can't show it here is because my Bennett is C6, and Chiori is literally one of the few C0 characters in the game who has their infusions overridden by external means, which is seriously cringe. But yes, it did help Chiori in this way. Ito's team also works about as well as you'd expect. Dare I say it could be an upgrade over his traditional team, but I don't want to say anything for certain because I'm not entirely sure. And yes, she does work for other units as a general purpose Kazuha replacement if you want crystallized protection. It's sad to not have 4VV on your side, sure, but with that being said, you can also gain the utility of better protection in the team. Seriously though, I can't understate how crazy a fixed 40% buff with no condition other than simply crystallize is. I personally tested this out with Arlecchino, as at C0 sometimes she can be susceptible to staggering against battles like the Copper Duo and such, but insert your personal favorite DPS here, and as long as Geo application doesn't ruin the team, it should work. I spoke of how Kachina would be a crazy unit right out of the box at C0, which we'd all have access to thanks to the Natlan Archon quest. I stand by that 100%, that for sure holds true. Yes, her C1 and C2 are really nice quality of life changes, especially her C2 because more uptime is always nice, and it adds more value to building ER on her, but you can get everything to do with the Cinder City buff at C0. I've also found literally no incentive to level her up in order to better my teams. Like I said earlier, I brought her up a tiny bit for the free goodie and some extra survivability. Otherwise, she's also free-to-play friendly and future-friendly in the sense of needing no resources in order to do her thing. Free-to-play friendly because resources are limited in this game and we want to spend those on what we know will be of value to an account, and future-proof friendly because there's no need to worry about wasting time on Resin on Kachina. You can literally try her out with nothing invested and she'll do fine. So if you want to replace her in the near future, you can do so without any grievances. Plus, if you farm up a Cinder City set, you can transfer it not only to future Kachina replacements, but also to literally any other support in the game as well. It's impossible to waste resin deliberately on this character. And as I've already mentioned countless times throughout my videos, I'm a big shill for the Navia Kachina Bennett Shangling team. This isn't a case of somebody recommending a team because they know it's good, but then they actually never play the team in their spare time. Dude, this is my favorite Navia team, and even though I have a C2 Xian Yun and C6 Farina, I vastly prefer to play this Navia team over what would be a much more powerful plunge team. Plus, let's be real, in my position, making Farina the plunge DPS is the smarter and more effective move here. Anyways, it's not only fun though. I also adore the team for the fact that it's one of the strongest carry-based teams out there. I and others always praise Alheiston for being an incredibly accessible DPS, but if you think he's accessible, then you have to start praising Navia too now. Because this is a fully 4-star team that is extremely effective with 2 free units in it, and there's literally a new craftable claymore that provides skill damage % based on pyro reactions. Most people should have it at least R1 from the web event, where you simply click a button after an animated slideshow to claim it. Navia is the only 5-star in the team, the only quote-unquote gold if you will, so I see no incentive to downplay how good this team is because it's plenty accessible and plenty strong. It definitely raised Navia's position in the accessibility meta in my opinion, and even outside of the accessibility meta, if you do apply Kachina to some other Navia teams which are more expensive, you're in for some pretty neat clear times. Yes, Kachina is a free-to-play legend. And even if she does get replaced in the future, reminder that she's a free and permanent 4-star that will always be relevant for newer players for years to come. So there will always be an audience of people worth recommending Kachina to. I also mentioned how Kachina's exploration was going to be pretty good. In Notlan, yes it is. As you'd expect, she climbs walls quickly and is a good substitute for using stamina, though I think it's a shame that she doesn't regenerate stamina when moving up walls. That's more or less a nitpick though. You can traverse ground pretty quickly on her drill as well, faster than you usually would. It isn't as fast as Mualani's Shark Surfboard, but the drill definitely doesn't run out as fast as the surfboard on land either. You can form some very good travel teams with Kachina. We have plenty of travel-savvy characters in the game now, such as Sayu, Wanderer, Xianya, and you get the idea. I myself am partial to exploring Notlan with this team here. My main DPS, of course, Mualani for a speed boost and excellent water plus lava traversal, Kachina for mountains and general ground travel, and Xian Yun for a neat speed boost and unique traversal up onto mountains or other ledges and such. It's very intuitive stuff. You don't have to invest any resources and such to get this value out of her, and I find that a nice little detail is that she feels very good to use as an overworld character, as in, you aren't obligated to use some massive burst in order to get her value out. You just pop out her skill and swap off in order for her to start crystallizing. Very cool stuff, I'd say. I was also really hoping that she'd be very good at mining because she literally rides a big drill, and I thought it'd be funny. Thankfully, she indeed delivers on this and actually mines surprisingly well. So to all you free-to-play rock hunters out there without a Zhongli, Kachina is the gift that keeps on giving because she's a pretty good alternative to using the guy's big pillar. I'll be completely honest, I don't think it's a problem that Kachina doesn't have any kit buffing. She does kinda with her C4, and I think it's a shame they went the def route instead of the attack % route, because as it stands, it felt like Hoyoverse really knew what they were doing with Kachina in making her a super solid Navia concession. But I can't get mad about it because her C1 and C2 cater very well to Navia teams, and both Ito plus Chiori are characters that are desperately in need of a buff right now. Genshin's meta climate has been seriously unkind to those two. While it's a shame they made her a sub DPS instead of a buffer, what we got still has so many pros to it. Needing zero investment on this character saves so many resources, especially when we have both Mualani and Kanich to look forward to in this patch, and Cinder City's value more than makes up for this particular shortcoming. Yes, Kachina could have been one of the 4 stars for the ages, but Hoyoverse doesn't want to make a next-gen Bennett or next-gen Xingqiu. That is the mistake that they are actively trying to avoid in my opinion. Keeping that in mind, I'd say that what we got on the end was still more than enough to be satisfactory. Yes, she is basically a walking artifact set. Yes, her kit itself isn't doing all of the work, but one of Animo's biggest claims to fame is 4VV, so I don't see why being a walking artifact set is so bad if you're really good at that particular job. Even better yet if you're barely asking for any resin to do so. She wants a single plus 20 ER sands and that's it. Doesn't sound very demanding to me. This is all why I don't care if she inevitably gets power crept. We're all smart individuals here, we can all put 2 and 2 together to realize that Shilonen is more than likely gonna replace whatever Kachina does. Nothing is confirmed yet, but it's the same as when they made the Burning Artifact set, and then coincidentally announced Emily not long after. It's not rocket science. As I already said, Kachina is permanent, Banners take months at a time to come back. A new player is only going to have access to her at first, and Shilonen is also a limited 5-star with limited 5-star levels of cost. I doubt that Kachina will be able to do even a quarter of what Shilonen is going to do, whatever that may be. But you get the idea. Being a budget-friendly alternative is excellent. I won't lie, however. I think a Shilonen haver will have no more use for Kachina, let's be real here. But she's still going to be a commendable recommendation for a large group of people, and I think that matters. Plus, let's remember that preference exists. I don't like Shilonen's design at all, so if I want to use Kachina to avoid using Shilonen, then I can. Why do you think there are people who still play outdated characters such as Albedo and Eula, even if everybody agrees that those two suck? Because people like the characters. It's not that big of a point, especially since it's so subjective, I know. But I did want to raise that point since I do think it matters, especially in a game that is so character-driven. Kachina is almost perfect in my opinion. They did fall short by not including any buffing in the actual kit itself, but she still ended up as a really effective walking artifact set. Sometimes characters like this will work in theory, but have really jank rotations, whereas Kachina simply gets her job done without any hassle. I seriously appreciate this character and I hope you can see her value too. Hopefully this video was able to tell you my more developed opinions on Kachina now that we've had her out for a while. This has been Juice, signing out, and the only thing that confuses me about Kachina is the fact that she's a squirrel or something, but there's no other squirrels in her tribe? Huh?